So this is the kickoff to chapter 10. Wow, we are moving along. I'm so proud of you. I have almost everyone's chapter 9 test, so make sure to get that into me by today. It should have been in by tomorrow, but make sure you have that all in to me today so you can kick off chapter 10 with us. This is a pretty short introduction for today, just to get us warmed up for tomorrow's 10.1 lesson. 1 page. However, remember in class we would use this vocabulary sheet, cut them out and staple them so that you have all of your vocabulary words with you. If you have scissors and if you have a stapler, you may do that. If you don't, just rip these out and keep them close by. Maybe put them in a folder, your binder, stick them in your journal, just so that you don't forget where they are and you can refer to them throughout the chapter. These are very important words. You want to know the difference between all of these vocabulary words because, as you know, chapter 10 is all about measuring tons of things, whether it's time, whether it's distance, whether it's volume. We are going to learn how to measure many things in chapter 10. So this is a good thing to study and get familiar with. All right, here we go. So time to the half hour. Read the clock and write the time. Now this is review from 2nd grade. It's just starting off easy. And you want to know how to read time. Again, this is 10:30. Notice that the small hand represents the hour and the long hand represents the minute, always. We are at 10 o'clock here. It has not reached 11 yet. And the 6 always represents the 30. Right? This may look familiar to you from the past. Labeling the clock. And remember, each chunk represents 5 minutes. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. And you hit a new hour when you get to the 12. And then each of these really little ones represent 1 minute. So if it helps you, maybe write this so you get familiar with it. Again, it's review, but if it's been a while since you've worked with telling time, this might help you for now. Number 2 is 6:30. So again, that small hand is your hour, the long hand is the minute. We have not reached 7 o'clock yet. We are halfway there. So we're still in the 6 zone here with the hour hand, and we're at the 30 minute. So 6:30. And again, if you want to do this and label every 15 minutes on the clock, you can. Whatever helps you. Skip counting by 5s. We're very familiar with this. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. It sounds like that's pretty easy. However, it does relate to this, right? In order to tell time, you want to be good at counting by 5s. That's what the clock does. Over here, again, counting by 5s, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, 85. Now, 5 and 6, I wrote in the directions on Google Classroom that you may or may not be able to do 5 and 6 if you have a ruler or not. But I wanted to show you, for those that do, this is about 2 inches. So then I compared, I wrote this little note to myself. Notice this is half of the crayon, right? The fly, you can see that it's half of the crayon. It would probably end right there. So if this is 2 inches, half of that is 1 inch. Math in the real world. This is something you do all the time as you think in your head, okay, how much longer until, or how many more hours until, How many hours do we have school a day? If we start at this time and get out at that time, how long is it? Right? Those are all questions that you're actually using this skill right here. So here we have a data table. We have the date, we have when the sun rises and when the sun sets. It wants us to tell them which date has the least daylight and which has the most daylight. I underlined the question so I stay organized. So January 10th has the least. And I want you to really apply this to your own life. If you woke up, just say the sun rose at 7:22 a.m. and it set at 4:55 p.m. That's the shortest amount of time between all of these. Okay, you have to look very carefully. Relate it to yourself. Relate to something that's easier. If we started school at 7:22 in the morning and it ended at 4:55, that is less than if we started at 7:22 and we ended at 4:56, right? That would be 1 minute longer. This would be another minute longer. Now this starts a minute earlier, but it gets out 3 minutes later, so it's still longer. But this is the longest. We start the earliest and we get out the latest. So this is the least amount of sun and this is the most. And again, if you need to apply that to something you're more familiar with, think of imagine that was the hours of the school day, right? Think of something that makes you relate to the problem. It's a very good math skill. Okay, vocabulary. This over here is very helpful for this part of the lesson. We are completing the graphic organizer by using the words with a check, so these right here. And we're writing the words in order from the greatest to the least length of time. So I also wrote the minutes next to it, which I highly recommend. An hour is the most amount of time, coming in at 60 minutes, and then we cut it in half and we get a half hour, which is 30 minutes. And 30 minutes is half of 60, right? And then you go even smaller and we get a quarter hour, which is 15 minutes. And then we have a minute, which is 1 minute, also 60 seconds. So I think this one might be the newest to people. A quarter hour is each 15 minutes. Each chunk of 15 minutes is called a quarter hour. That's the fancy name. So say it's noon and we have lunch at 12:15. I might say, oh, we're having lunch in a quarter hour, 15 minutes. All right, now 1 through 5. Again, this is very handy for this part of the lesson. Number 1 says, I am written with times after midnight and before noon, and we call that AM, after midnight. Number 2, I am the time when it is 12 o'clock in the daytime, we call that noon. If it's the other 12 o'clock, that's called midnight. This one's noon. I am the amount of liquid in a container. That's liquid volume. Again, that's right here. You want to study these. Number 4, I am the time that passes from the start of an activity to the end of the activity. And that's elapsed time. It's how much time something goes on for, elapsed time. And then number 5, I am the amount of matter in an object. That's called mass. And I wrote down here a little hint, both start with M, right? Matter and mass. So the amount of matter an object has is called its mass. And we watched a video on that 2 days ago. All right, everyone. So that is the very quick introduction to chapter 10. Tomorrow is 10.1. We are cruising. Make sure you stay with us. Refer to the past YouTube videos if you need any clarification with what we've learned in the past. They are never going down. They'll always be up there for you. Make sure you focus in on your vocabulary and get familiar with it. Quick reminder, we have another Zoom meeting tomorrow. We had 16 people show up today. Yesterday was 22 students. So make sure that you are participating in those Zoom calls so that you don't miss anything, and it's nice to just see everybody. Quick reminder as well that your mini book report is due tomorrow. So I will see you soon, and I hope you have a wonderful day.